Welcome back. Let's make a brief stopover in Ukraine's Mykolaiv city following a Russian attack there earlier today. One person was killed and at least 16 people were injured. The attack damaged an infrastructure facility, a restaurant complex, trade pavilions, residential buildings and cars. A video of the aftermath was released by Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs showing buildings on fire and firemen battling the flames. Emergency services said the attack also caused several fires, 2 of which have already been put out. In another development, French researcher Laurent Vignette has said that has been found guilty by a Moscow court of breaking Russia's foreign agent laws. He's also been sentenced to 3 years in prison. The 48-year-old is one of several Westerners to have been charged under Russian security laws at a time of tense confrontation between Moscow and the West over the war in Ukraine. The judge ignored a plea by the defense to fine him instead of jailing him. In a speech to the court before he was sentenced, he said he loved Russia, apologized for breaking the law, and even recited a verse from Russian poet Alexander Pushkin. Wearing a blue open-neck shirt and jeans, he stood behind metal bars and listened intently to the judge as he rattled off the verdict. He was blinking rapidly but did not show any visible emotion. A long-time researcher on the former Soviet Union, who was arrested in June by the FSB security service, accused of failing to register as a foreign agent in Russia while collecting military information of value to foreign intelligence services. The offense carries a sentence of up to 5 years, but prosecutors requested a term of 3 years and 3 months in recognition of the fact that Vignette had pleaded guilty. To politics now, former U.S. President and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has been in Pennsylvania rallying support ahead of November 5th presidential election. On Monday, 2 of his supporters required medical attention during his town hall with South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Thankfully, the supporters are okay, but the former president has some very deep concerns leading up to the election. Concerns he expressed to Fox News host Maria Bartiromo in an interview released on Sunday night.
He doesn't have any idea what's happening in Norfolk as he spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen. We have 2 enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. I got along great with all of them. I handled them.
Vice President Kamala Harris has a response to Mr. Trump's enemy within comments. She's been campaigning also in Pennsylvania. Well, Ms. Harris also played sound bites from the former president's interview on Fox, where he spoke about the danger of an enemy within. She also said the comments targeted people who did not support or agree with Mr. Trump. She called Mr. Trump an unserious man whose re-election will bring brutality and brutally serious consequences.
Donald Trump, I think in our collective opinion, certainly mine, is an unserious man. But the consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious. You heard his words coming from him. He's talking about the enemy within Pennsylvania. He's talking about the enemy within our country, Pennsylvania. He's talking about that he considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country. It's a serious issue. He is saying that he would use the military to go after them. Think about this. And we know who he would target. And we know who he would target because he has attacked them before. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Election officials who refuse to cheat by filling extra votes and finding extra votes for him. Judges who insist on following the law instead of bending to his will. This is among the reasons I believe so strongly that a second Trump term would be a huge risk for America and dangerous.
We want to bring in now partner Gainful Solutions, who is also President Emeritus, Corporate Counsel in Africa, Stephen Hayes. Thank you very much. He joins us from Washington. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Hayes, on The World Today.
Good afternoon. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. It's very difficult to think of Mr. Trump as a lover of America. Do the American people really consider him nationalistic in his thinking when you look at everything that has happened before now?
Well, a sizable percentage of the population does think of him as nationalistic, and in the whole basis of America First, from his previous campaign, which was actually a winning campaign in 2016, and he has appealed to, I think, the worst instincts of Americans. He's extremely nationalistic, but I think more importantly, it's hard to say any other thing besides nationalist, but race is playing a major role in his politics. Anti-immigrant, anti-dissent. It goes against the best of traditions of America. Particularly, I think I'm troubled, especially by his attack on immigrants, because immigration has been always in the history of this country. And immigrants are providing the jobs. They have a lower percentage of arrest rate than the normal population, the native-born population of America. They have a lower rate of welfare use, and yet all this is being completely distorted by Trump.
Yes, so we'll soon be counting days. I mean, for now, it's just 3 weeks to the election, and we're already having flashbacks to 2015 when Mr. Trump first ran for president. There's been very little or no transparency on his part when you talk about taxes and on his health, of course. So the vice president released her own health report just days ago. What we got from Mr. Trump's campaign was the same response they gave when you recall what happened back in 2015. How many more deja vu moments have you noticed in his campaign since it started?
Well, I think he's never commented on his health other than say he's in great health, greater than everybody else, and anything. So I think as far as the days in the campaign, I think all of America is just hoping that it goes as fast as it can. But I think it's a campaign that has been based totally on distortion, on hate, and division. And I think that's going to be a very, very dangerous precedent if he's elected.
And we also talked about supporters earlier fainting at his rally in Pennsylvania. I mean, they're fine now, but there seems to be so much going on in the Trump campaign, from assassination attempts to incidents like this. Could we say that the former president is being targeted?
Well, he's been targeted by individuals. I think that's clear. That's frankly in this day and age, it's almost to be expected. I suspect that Secret Services also fended off potential attacks on Harris. We're in a particularly violent stage in this country right now, so I think he's very well protected now after the Pennsylvania incident. But I think if anyone wants to really get through to do an assassination, it's going to be very, very hard to stop anywhere in the world. But I think he's very well protected now, and I think that's the least of the worries. I think what the worries now is what becomes of the country, what's going to be the results of the election, and what does that mean to the future? Not simply the future of the United States, but also the future of the world.
But do you think that Harris's campaign has been having things maybe a little more easier?
That's a good question. I think she hasn't faced the same degree of scrutiny that Trump has. She might differ because she's been under criticism for not revealing her full agenda. I think it's very hard for any candidate to have the full agenda. Trump is unafraid in that regard of just putting out what he feels, and his feels are virulent at times. So her campaign, to really, I think, answer what you're asking, is her campaign really hasn't caught the same degree of fire that Trump has. Trump has played to people's fears. He's particularly played to their anxieties. So some of those anxieties are very real. Harris really hasn't set the campaign on fire yet. She's got essentially 2 weeks to do that.
Still so many undecided voters as we speak. 2 weeks election, over 3 weeks now. How important are days still to swing votes in the coming polls?
Well, they're essential. All polls show that only 3% of the registered voters or voters expected are undecided at this stage. That's an amazingly low percentage. So they're absolutely critical, particularly when all the polls say this is a dead heat. Harris had a bit of an advantage. Trump is gaining. It's going to go back and forth. It's all going to come down to those swing states, and those swing states, even less than that 3% of votes, are going to be vital. It all comes down to a very small percentage of Americans who now are, in essence, going to elect the next president of the United States.
All right. Thank you very much. Partner Gainful Solutions is also the President Emeritus Corporate Council of Africa, Stephen Hayes. Thanks a lot for your exciting contribution on the world
As
today.
usual.
And we'll definitely keep our fingers crossed. Thank you.
No, it's an honor. Thank you.
And in one of those very rare moments, we have seen the First Lady speak at a campaign rally event. First Lady Jill Biden hit the campaign trail in the battleground state of Wisconsin, where she made the case for voters to elect Kamala Harris for president. Well, she started by highlighting Kamala's values to her from her time in high school.
Whether we're in a red state or a blue state, none of us can survive this life on our own. We need leaders who can build up our communities, leaders who put our country first, like my husband Joe and like Kamala Harris. So I want to tell you a story from when Kamala was in high school, a moment that's defined her life's work. Kamala began to notice that her friend Wanda never seemed to want to go home after school. And at school, well, Wanda just seemed like a little depressed, a little off. So one day, Kamala pressed her and said, you know, what's wrong? What's going on? So Wanda confided to her that she was being molested by her stepfather. And Kamala didn't just listen. She did something about it instinctively. She said, Wanda, you have to come and stay with us. And Wanda did. And then Kamala Harris built a career serving the public to protect women and girls like Wanda. And that's the Kamala Harris that I know.
Moving further into Northern America, Canada has expelled 6 Indian diplomats, including the High Commissioner, linking them to the murder of a Sikh separatist leader and alleging a broader effort to target Indian dissidents in Canada. Well, earlier on Monday, India retaliated by ordering the expulsion of 6 high-ranking Canadian diplomats, including the acting High Commissioner, and said it had withdrawn its envoy from Canada, contradicting Canada's statement of expulsion. The diplomatic row represents a major deterioration of relations between both Commonwealth countries. Ties have been frayed since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said last year that he had evidence linking Indian agents to the assassination of Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian territory.
Canada is a country rooted in the rule of law, and the protection of our citizens is paramount. That's why, when our law enforcement and intelligence officials began pursuing credible allegations that agents of the Government of India were directly involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, on Canadian soil, we responded. As the RCMP Commissioner stated earlier, they have clear and compelling evidence that agents of the Government of India have engaged in and continue to engage in activities that pose a significant threat to public safety. This includes clandestine information gathering techniques, coercive behavior targeting South Asian Canadians, and involvement in over a dozen threatening and violent acts, including murder. While attempts have been made by the RCMP and national security officials to work with the Government of India and Indian law enforcement counterparts on this matter, they have been repeatedly refused. This is why, this weekend, Canadian officials took an extraordinary step. They met with Indian officials to share RCMP evidence which concluded 6 agents of the Government of India are persons of interest in criminal activities. And despite repeated requests to the Government of India, it has decided not to cooperate.
India announced it would withdraw its officials. To be clear, we're not seeking diplomatic confrontation with India, but we will not sit quietly as agents of any country are linked to efforts to threaten, harass, or even kill Canadians, period. Canada is guided by the rule of law. We follow the Vienna Convention at all times, and we expect, of course, India to do the same as well. We will always continue to ask for India's cooperation to the investigation. I did so formally again by being in contact with the Foreign Minister of India, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, earlier today.
The actions that are alleged to have taken place on Canadian soil are indeed a grave violation of our sovereignty and of Canada's rule of law. But I also hope that Canadians find relief in knowing that our law enforcement and national security agencies are working to keep them safe and to hold to account those who seek to harm Canadians. I strongly encourage all Canadians, and in particular leaders in the South Asian and particularly the Sikh communities, to continue to work with law enforcement officials.
Away from that now, North Korea has taken a step further, severing ties with the South by blowing up sections of the deeply symbolic roads and railways connecting both nations. Pyongyang's military last week vowed to permanently seal its southern border after spending months laying mines and building anti-tank barriers in the wake of leader Kim Jong-un declaring the South his country's principal enemy. The North States media says the North also accused Seoul of using drones to drop anti-regime propaganda leaflets on the capital, Pyongyang, with Mr. Kim convening a security meeting to direct the plan of immediate military action in response to this. South Korea's military released video footage showing North Korea soldiers in military uniforms ahead of the huge explosion, which emitted thick billowing smoke as it blew up sections of the Gyeonggi Road. More footage, apparently from some afterblast, showed that excavators dig in while soldiers worked at large red trucks arrived. Media mogul and entrepreneur Sean Diddy Combs has been confronted with 6 new sexual abuse lawsuits, including one accusing the rap mogul of assaulting a minor. The lawsuits were filed a month after Combs was criminally charged for what prosecutors have described as a long-running scheme of sex trafficking and racketeering. Combs' lawyer did not immediately respond to the request for comments on Monday, but the rapper has denied wrongdoing in other civil cases against him pleading not guilty in his criminal case. The lawsuits were filed in New York federal court by anonymous plaintiffs, including one man who accused Mr. Combs of assaulting him when he was a minor. Mr. Combs was arrested in September, charged with 3 felony counts of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. He pleaded not guilty on September the 17th. A judge denied Mr. Combs' request for bail on October the 10th and then set a trial date for May the 5th, 2025. Let's come back to Africa now as we turn our attention to Egypt, which has now recorded a second day of tragedy, this time involving university students. A vehicular crash earlier today left 12 people dead amid 33 others wounded. According to local media reports, the students were going back to their dormitory from classes when the incident occurred. The cause of the crash has not been revealed, and the driver of the vehicle has been arrested and is being interrogated. The injured have now been transported to hospitals, but nothing is known of their condition for now. The Vice President of the World Bank, Mr. Ndamit Gill, has said that Nigeria has the largest number of people living in extreme poverty globally. Speaking at the Nigerian Economic Summit 30th anniversary in Abuja, he says that Nigeria's reforms between 2003 and 2007 led to very impressive economic growth. He adds that the growth was not sustained, leading millions of Nigerians into poverty.
This is my first time.
The 30th Nigerian Economic Summit is themed Collaborative Action for Growth, Competitiveness and Stability. The summit brings together key stakeholders to discuss and proffer solutions to Nigeria's economic challenges. Among those in attendance is Vice President Kashim Shettima, members of the Federal Executive Council, captains of industry, as well as development partners. The summit, which is jointly organized by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, and the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, is considered a reflection of the need for partnership to address the nation's economic challenges.
Today's challenges demand a new approach centered on collaboration to promote growth, competitiveness, and stability.
Before we seek cooperation and understanding of the broad spectrum of the citizenry, as there is indeed light at the end of the tunnel. The economy is facing the right direction and the decline has been arrested. What we have achieved, what has been achieved is a result of boldness, resilience, and collaboration, and thus we need more to compensate for the decades of underinvestment and to ensure that we deliver a collaborative, competitive, and stable environment.
The Vice President of the World Bank, Mr. Ndamit Gill, who is also the Chief Economist of the International Financial Institution, has some concerns about Nigeria's economy.
Without solid progress in Nigeria, the Sustainable Development Goals that we all talk about will remain out of reach. Nigeria, after all, is now the country with the largest number of people living in extreme poverty, not just in Africa, but across the world. But Nigeria's reforms from 2003 to 2007 were exactly what was needed, but they were not sustained. Today's fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate reforms are hurting everyone, especially ordinary Nigerians who are struggling with the high prices of food and transport. The government must do everything in its power to protect the most vulnerable citizens against hardships, because their lives and the lives of Nigeria's 110 million children depend on it.
Vice President Kashim Shettima represented President Bola Tinubu at the summit, and he explains how the administration's reforms will ensure long-term stability.
The present administration, through the Renewed Hope agenda, has embarked on bold and courageous reforms designed to create an environment that fosters sustainable economic growth and shared prosperity. Our focus is on sectors that can offer inclusive and sustainable growth, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and the digital economy. We have initiated various programs such as the MSME hubs and single-digit loans for manufacturers designed to provide entrepreneurs with the support they need to succeed. We have also introduced the credit corporation to offer our workers consumer loans with single-digit interest. These initiatives collectively will boost the economy and ensure it remains competitive in Africa and globally.
The Nigerian Economic Summit 30th anniversary provides a platform for policymakers, business leaders, and stakeholders to discuss and propose solutions to Nigeria's economic challenges.
Will end in South Africa, where the Igbo people from Nigeria's southeastern region have marked the Ebu Heritage Day. Those behind the celebration say that it aims to foster cultural pride and community cohesion among the Igbo people by showcasing their contributions to South Africa's broader economic and cultural landscape. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samusa, reports.
The atmosphere is electric, filled with music, dance and colorful displays of traditional attire. The organizer says that this year's celebration highlights the importance of cultural exchange and community spirit. The two-day event featured workshops that educate attendees about Igbo customs and history. Throughout the day, participants have enjoyed various activities, including traditional dance performances. The highlight of the day was the masquerade cultural dance. Emmanuel Okoli is the President General Nzuko Ndi Igbo South Africa.
Today we are celebrating our New Yam Festival. We call it Iriji in Igbo land, and it's kind of showcasing our culture. We are also celebrating Ebu Heritage, New Yam Festival. And yesterday we had something we call Iba Izomunne, which is it was a talk show which we're trying to introspect and speak to our people.
Mazi Nyejuma emphasized the role of the Igbo community in promoting inclusivity and understanding among different cultures.
How to move our people forward, irrespective of the language, irrespective of your culture or whatever. How to move Nigerians forward, how to behave better in diaspora.
I had the opportunity to speak to some young people and I asked them what they love about their culture.
I like the fact that they have like good food. They can cook very nice food. Our cocoa comes, like chocolate, all those chocolate stuff comes from our country, which makes us popular. And yeah, they're rich in the nutrients and all that stuff. My favorite juice is egusi and pandoya.
Jollof rice, egusi, okra, and plantain.
The event had attracted not only the Igbo community, but also locals all eager to partake in this celebration. From Pretoria, South Africa, Innocent Simos, Channels Television News.
Well, that's the beauty of our rich cultural heritage. And that's where we draw the cuttings on today's edition of The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.